Hello, friends. We got all kinds of different friends here today. This is super exciting. We have about a quarter of you are LSAT Demon Live subscribers. 20% of you are LSAT Demon Premium subscribers. 14% of you are LSAT Demon Basic subscribers. And 41% of you are Demon Free subscribers. You are all very welcome here to this example of what I do on my Thursday night classes for the Demon Live students. I have several people here to help me answer questions. Abigail is here. Hi, Abigail. Eric is here. Hi, Eric. Who else do we have? There's so many people that I can't even see. Do we have any other helpers from LSAT Demon here?
Hi, Nathan. I'm here.
Oh, hey, Taylor's here. Awesome. Yes. Okay. Fantastic. We are going to start tonight with reading comprehension. And I love starting with reading comprehension because the LSAT is a reading comprehension test first and last and always. It's definitely the most important thing that the LSAT tests. Especially if you're new here, you might think that like formal logic and fancy diagrams and semantics and stuff is like what the LSAT's all about, and that's what LSAT prep is supposed to be. But what LSAT is really about is just reading it carefully, figuring out what it says, figuring out what it's asking you. And if you know what they're saying to you and you know what they're asking you, then you frequently should be predicting the answers. And that's true on this section of the test. It's true on all sections of the test that we really got to become the boss of the test. Okay, so reading comp is where it kind of stands out pretty starkly that like you have to be able to figure out what something says. If you can't do that, doesn't matter how much fancy logic you have, question types you have, weird LSAT timing strategies, all that stuff goes out the window if you're not reading it and actually understanding what it says. Our core philosophy of reading comprehension can be boiled down, I think, to this idea that all of the questions are simply asking you what has to be true based on the passage. That's it. When you get into the reading comp questions, they have all this convoluted fancy language of getting there. Like they say stuff like it can be inferred from the passage that the author would be most likely to believe which one of the following, that like that. And you start thinking, oh, okay, so I'm supposed to like predict the future, read between the lines, that sort of thing. Nah, they're asking you what the passage says. When they ask you for what would the author agree with? Well, based on the passage. So you have to go back to what the passage actually says when you're picking your answers on your reading comprehension. And if you learn to read the passages aggressively enough and actively enough and really get in there and understand what it says, like why this document exists, if you can really do that, then you should be predicting the answer, like I said, to maybe half the questions on reading comp. And you should spend, so what I'm saying is, spend all the time you need on the passage, make sure you've got it, then go on to the questions. Okay, I'm going to give you, we have on the syllabus, we have the reading comp passage. It might actually be helpful today if Eric and Taylor and Abigail, if you just put that link into the chat for people who aren't really used to the flow of my class. The passage will be there. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes. We're going to post a poll so that you can tell me which questions gave you a hard time. And in about 10 minutes, or when about half of you have read the passage and attempted the questions, that's when I'll go into my explanations. All right. Thanks for being here. Just read carefully. Take your time. Don't try to rush. I don't care if you finish. It's okay. Just spend 10 minutes trying to get them right. Okay. It's better to get like 2 questions right than it is to do all of them and get half of them right. That's no good. I would rather you just know the answer to one of them and then know the answer to another one of them. So no racing the clock here. Okay. All right. Good luck. Have fun. I'll be back in about 10. All right, y'all. I am going to read this passage to you and kind of talk my way through it, trying to demonstrate what it means to really understand what they're saying, try to figure out what they're saying. And then I'm going to answer questions. We'll see which ones gave you guys a hard time. Probably won't have time to answer all the questions, but I will answer a few of them. But let me talk to you about the passage. It's test 73, passage 4, and it's comparative reading. There's two passages, passage A and passage B. Passage A says, there are two principles that are fundamental to a theory of justice regarding property. All right, two principles about a theory of justice regarding property. Property is stuff or land or your car or whatever. The principle of justice in acquisition specifies the conditions under which someone can legitimately come to own something that was previously not owned by anyone. So, that's like turning land into private property, where it's like, well, nobody used to own this, but you plant a flag in it, it's yours now. Or you go to the moon, right? Plant a flag in it. Are we saying it's ours? I don't know. So there are principles apparently that govern the way you can legitimately do that, like turn non-property into property that is owned by someone. The principle of justice in transfer specifies the conditions under which the transfer of property from one person to another is justified. Okay, so we're looking for justification and justice. I mean, I don't know what that means, like according to who, but this speaker, the author in passage A, is telling you, it's like they're almost like making a moral pronouncement. There are these two principles that govern how property is made and how property is transferred. Okay, fine. You're not telling me what the principles are, though. You're just telling me that there are these two principles. Okay. Given such principles, if the world were wholly just, the following definition would exhaustively cover the subject of justice regarding property. Okay. Tell me your damn rules. Like are you going to tell me these principles or not? This is like this kind of highfalutin language that's not really going anywhere. They're warming their way up to saying, okay, here are the rules. 1, a person who acquires property in accordance with the principle of justice in acquisition is entitled to that property. That's when you can own something that was not previously owned by anyone, just a rock or something. And it's like, okay, the principle of justice in acquisition governs how that rock can just become my property. And the rule is that if they do act in accordance with that principle of justice in acquisition, then they are entitled to the property. Okay, but you're still not telling me what the rule was. Huh. 2, a person who acquires property in accordance with the principle of justice in transfer from someone else who is entitled to the property is entitled to the property. And I'm laughing at this point. It's kind of like, oh yeah, really? No shit. You told me that there were two big rules. One of them was about acquisition and one of them was about transfer. And now you're telling me that if you got it properly through these rules of acquisition, then you are entitled to it. And if you then transfer it to someone else, according to the principle of justice in transfer of property, then they are entitled to it. Like, no kidding. You could have said all that in like 2 sentences. This needs to be edited way down, but that's okay. It means I understand what's there. 3, no one is entitled to any property except by repeated applications of 1 and 2. Okay, so there is no such thing as other property, or other property that you're entitled to. You have to always follow these two principles. If you do, you are entitled. If you don't, you are not entitled. Got it. However, not all actual situations are generated in accordance with the principles of justice in acquisition and justice in transfer. Not all situations are do you mean people don't always behave by your rules? Some people steal from others or defraud them, for example. Oh, and are those violations of the principle of transfer? The existence of past injustice raises the issue of the rectification of injustice. Huh? That feels like an entirely new idea. I mean, I don't even know where that comes from. That's like, you just said that sometimes people steal, which I assume is a violation of your transfer principle. Then you say the existence of past injustice raises the issue of the rectification of injustice. Okay, so you mean if someone steals, then then we have to rectify that? Is that what you're saying? If past injustice has shaped present ownership in various ways, what, if anything, ought to be done to rectify that injustice? So if it was stolen, we should give it back. Or if it, like just claiming all of North America, saying, manifest destiny, like if you're saying that did not accord with the principle of justice in acquisition, then you're probably saying we should give it back, right? Or you're just asking a rhetorical question. All right. A principle of rectification would use historical information about previous situations and injustices done in them, and information about the actual course of events that flowed from these injustices, to produce a description of the property ownership that should have resulted. So we go back, we look, here's who really owned it. Like in the first instance, you'd have to figure out who acquired property in accordance with the principle of justice in acquisition, because only they can ever legitimately own property. And then you're gonna use the historical information about these situations, like, oh, so did you just steal it? Did you not properly? Then we should think about, well, here's what should have happened. That's the produce a description of the property ownership that should have resulted. All right. Actual ownership of property must then be brought into conformity with this description. Oh, wow. Okay. And that's actually a really pretty strong statement there in the very last sentence. They get around to saying, boom, we have to bring the current ownership into conformity with what I just said, which is basically, you can't possibly own anything if it was not originally created in the accordance with the principle of justice and acquisition. And then if it ever got transferred, not in accordance with the principle of justice and transfer, then we need to think about who that shit really belongs to, and we have to give it back to them. And it was like I hated this passage. I hated the language. I hated how lofty it was. You could see that I was like pissed off. I was like wrestling with the passage. But in the end, I'm able to say, okay, well, I know what they want, though. They really want these principles to be followed. And they also say that if these principles are not followed, then we have to fix it. And I really would like to see what those principles look like, because they never, ever gave me the actual principles themselves. All right, passage B. In 1790, the United States Congress passed the Indian Non-Intercourse Act, which requires that all transfers of lands from Native Americans to others be approved by the federal government. Okay, I like this passage a lot better off the bat. We're now talking about history, like they're telling me a story of something that happened, probably bad for the natives, would be my guess, in 1790 in the United States. What now? The federal government has to approve any transfers of lands from Native Americans. Okay. The law has not been changed in any relevant respect, and it remains in effect today. Wow. Its purpose is clear. Okay, what's that purpose? It was meant to guarantee security to Native Americans against fraudulent acquisition by others of the Native Americans' land holdings. In other words, they created this law to keep people from ripping them off. Said you can't just go around buying land from the native people without the federal government's approval. And the reason why we're doing that is to secure them, to make sure that there are no fraudulent acquisitions by others, that meaning not the Native Americans, of the Native Americans' land holdings. Several suits have been initiated by Native American tribes for recovery of lands held by them when the Non-Intercourse Act took effect. So in other words, okay, you're saying that the feds didn't do their job, maybe? Or like, because I mean, if that thing was passed, well, you're telling me when it took effect. So at the moment that it took effect? Huh. All right. I'm going to have to keep reading to find out what you really mean by all that. One natural, one might also say obvious way of reasoning about Native American claims to land in North America is this. I thought none of those words do anything. Native Americans were the first human occupants of this land. Yes, go on. Before the European invasion of North America, the land belonged to them. Okay, if you say so. Passage A has these principles of acquisition. How did it get acquired in the first place? I understand nobody owned it in front of them, but did they follow the principles of acquisition? That's what passage A would be thinking about. But you're saying it belonged to them. In the course of that invasion and its aftermath, the land was illicitly taken from them. Illicitly means, secretly or shadily somehow. The current owners lack a well-founded right to the land, which now lies illicitly in their hands. So people took it away from them wrongly. They now own it wrongly. Ideally, the land should be restored to its rightful owners. I could see passage A going, yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about. This may be impractical. Compromises might have to be made, but the original wrong can most easily be righted by returning the land to them or by returning it wherever that is feasible. I could see passage A being like more strict about it. I could see passage A saying, what are you talking about compromise? There's only two ways that you can be justified in owning property. And if it was not owned that way, then it has to be, the passage A was trying to really fix things. Passage B seems to be somebody who is kind of following an idea like that, saying if you didn't come by it honestly, then you gotta give it back. Passage A is like very theoretical, and then passage B gets far more specific. At this point, I feel pretty well equipped to tackle the questions. Kendra, you've had a hand up for a while.
Hi. Hey,
Hi.
my question is that I thought that they already, I kind of guessed that they already told us the principles from but are these like rules right here just implementations of the principles? Like, does that make
I don't know
sense?
what passage you're talking about. Passage A, passage
Yeah,
B.
passage A for the numbered list. I thought
Well,
that these were the rules, or that the rules came with when it says that like the principle of justice and acquisition specifies this, or this specifies this. I thought those were the rules, or that's how I got the rules. But are
no,
you
there is no rule. It
really?
In the second sentence, it says the principle of justice in acquisition specifies the conditions under which someone can legitimately come to own something that was not previously owned by anyone. But
Okay.
what conditions? What are the conditions? If
As
there's no conditions, then I don't know what the rule actually is.
got it. Okay.
Is the condition you have to have been born there? Is the condition you have to have paid for it? Is the condition, or is the condition, if it's just your birthright, then you own it, like it's because of
Yeah.
your last name? What are the conditions? I have no idea what the conditions are.
Yeah, I
So
think
passage A is entirely in the abstract, where it's just like, well, if you follow the principle of acquisition, then you're good. And if you follow the principle of transfer after that, then you're also good. But they don't tell me what the actual rules are.
then what is this numbered list then? Like what did we gain from
It's
this?
a whole lot of nothing, man. It like
Okay.
really, that's why I was so pissed. I was more pissed than usual when I was reading this passage, because it was like, wow, you are really not saying shit. You're like, all they're really saying is you have to follow these rules. If you don't follow these rules, then you're not in accordance with the rules. And if you're not in accordance with the rules, then that's not justified. And it's like, yeah, okay, what are the actual rules though?
Right. Okay. And then my last question before I turn it over to somebody else. Don't these I'm basing it on the like part of the thing you read where it says that if it was not previously owned by anyone, if that's true of passage A, don't do passage A and passage B like disagree with each other? Because passage B is saying like the Native Americans were here first, so they should own it since they were the first human occupants of this land. But then this says if no one owned it, then you can't own it. So are they disagreeing with each other in that way?
You're not reading it right. That's not what it says. It says that if no one has owned it before, then the only way you can acquire it properly is if you are in accordance with the principle of justice and acquisition. Which
Okay.
I don't know what that is. I have no idea if that means that you're native to the land, then it's yours. Like maybe, but if you're not going to actually spell out the principle of justice and acquisition, then I just have
Then
no
we don't
idea
know
what we're
what you're
talking
talking about.
about.
Gotcha.
Nope.
Okay.
You
Thank
could
you.
look up that rule of justice and acquisition, and it could say if your last name's Trump, then you own it. And it's like, whoa, wait, really? That's what it said? Or it could say Biden. I mean, I'm not trying to get political. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
saying
yeah.
I don't know what that rule says, so I have no idea what those. I mean, now, because the last paragraph starts talking about rectification of injustices, and if it wasn't properly acquired, then it should be given back. And
Hmm.
I get the sense that whoever wrote this is probably thinking about, like, the first people who lived there really are probably the people who should own it, if anybody's
Right.
going to own it. I think that's probably where they're going. But on the LSAT, with LSAT brain, you've got to be like, well, you just went on and on about these principles, but you never actually spelled out the principles, and that's critical to your understanding of the passage.
Okay. I think I missed that part. Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. It was frustrating, right? I mean, they're almost like trying to put you to sleep there potentially, where it's like, I wonder if these kids are going to read that and think that these like principles are clear, like that this author has really telling you who should own the land, and they didn't. Um, they did say that if you're not the rightful owner, that situation should be rectified, but they're not saying who's supposed to do the rectification. They're not talking about any particular winners and losers. They're just saying, like, we've got to right these wrongs if there ever are these wrongs, and there sometimes are. Then passage B is more about, like, there actually were these wrongs. So let's figure out we should probably return them the land with some compromise, I guess. Okay, let me take a look at a couple of these questions. I want to start with maybe an easier one. Number 25 says, based on what it can be inferred from their titles, the relationship between which one of the following pairs of documents is most analogous to the relationship between passage A and passage B. Stop. Don't look at the answer choices. Think it through. How did passage A and passage B relate? As I was reading, I was thinking, passage B kind of seems to be potentially a specific application of passage A. The passage A has these principles. That didn't actually tell us what the principles were, but it said here, if you follow these principles, then here's how land can be properly owned, or property can be properly owned. And if not, then you really should give it back. Passage B is a story of where I think it's like, hey, here's some property that was not really acquired in a proper way, and we should probably try to give it back if we can. So as I go into these, there's going to be weird titles about weird topics, but I'm just looking for one where it's like kind of a higher level thing and then more of a specific application of that thing. A, card counting for everyone, a can't lose system for beating the dealer. And then what? The evils of gambling. No, those two they're two like opposite, right? That they wouldn't be on the same team. B, Mayor McConnell is unfit to serve. And then the other one, why Mayor McConnell should be reelected. Definitely not. There wasn't this. I'm not looking for opposition. I'm looking for a specific application of a more general thing. C, pruning fruit trees, a guide for the novice. Easy recipes for beginning cooks. Now, those sound like exactly the same thing, rather than one being high level theoretical and one being a more specific real world application. D, notable failures of the storm weather forecasting model. That's not going to be the answer because it's not high level enough. Meteorologist's best tool yet, the storm forecasting model. Again, with the opposition. I mean, no, you can't pick that. E, fundamentals of building construction and repair. Then engineering report, the repairs needed by the Thales building. Okay, that's the only good answer. We've got a more general thing about construction and repair. Then we've got a specific, hey, here's what we got to do to the Thales building. None of the other answers are credible at all. So the answer here is E. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? I'll do. I do want to do number 27 because that's the one that everybody struggled with. 60% on the poll. It's pretty amazing when one question gets half of you. Xander?
Hi, yeah, I just had a question about passage B, just a general question about passage B.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't really understand why they were talking about the Non-Intercourse Act because that has to do with the government approving transfers, but then they're ultimately making an argument about how the land should be returned to Native Americans. I just really wasn't seeing how the discussion of that act fit into their argument.
Neither did I.
Okay.
I mean, it's like what they essentially were saying was, hey, there was this historical thing that happened, and then the Native Americans got fucked. And the act seems to be for the protection of the Native Americans, but still, they just immediately say the next thing they say is, but the Native Americans actually got fucked, though. And so I was confused too. I mean, did you guys see it? As I was reading it, I was like, whoa, wait, what? My thing, I thought, Xander, I was thinking, oh, well, so there was this act, and then the feds were supposed to protect the Native Americans, but they did not actually protect the Native Americans. And that was the injustice, something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad you noted that that was weird because I thought it was weird too.
Got it. Thank you.
These passages do not have to be good, as well evidenced here by passage A. Passage A was just, I thought it was atrocious. And then, yeah, that weird bringing up the act, but not explaining yourself. It's, it felt like there's like a sentence or two missing, but they do that. Like, I think that's what they do when they create these reading comp passages is they take stuff that's essentially good and then they just kind of like make it shittier. And one way to make it shittier would be to like take out some of the explanatory stuff. Uh, yeah. Anyway. Okay. Let me try another one. Number 27 was requested by 60% of the group tonight, so it must be a tough one. Which one of the following most accurately describes the difference in approach taken by passage A as compared to passage B? Well, passage A was very high level. Passage A was like so theoretical that it didn't actually ever spell out those principles that were so key to the passage, but it was just like, well, there's these principles. You got to follow the principles. If you follow the principles, you're good. If you don't follow the principles, you're not good. And if it's not good, then we need to think about that. We need to rectify that situation. And it just was never specific at all. Passage B was more like, it was like, hey, here's this thing that happened in history. Some people were mistreated. We should think about that. We should right that specific wrong. They both had an opinion, though. I mean, they both had like a wrongs should be rectified. It's just that passage B was very specific instead of so general like passage A. Okay, so is that A, passage A espouses a general view without providing details, while passage B sketches an argument that it does not necessarily endorse? I definitely would not like that answer on a first read because I thought passage B said the original wrong can most easily be righted by returning the land to them. But you know what it is? It's the first sentence of the last paragraph. One natural way of reasoning about Native American claims to land in North America is this, : everything else there potentially could just be this argument that the author is describing without the author actually wanting to vouch for it. That it was annoying. Okay, that when I was reading the passage, I stumbled over the first sentence of the last paragraph because I thought it was more of this just bloviating, like, well, here's what should happen. I'm gonna tell you, like, because passage A had a lot of that. I'm about to tell you what the rules should there. This is what the rules are gonna be. And so that's what I thought they meant when they said one natural, one might almost say obvious way of reasoning about Native American claims to land in North America is. But if you read that as maybe the very next thing that they're going to say is, here's another way of thinking about it. And we don't know what the next paragraph of this document might say. We only have the parts we have. And it's just that preface there, I think, that is their justification for saying that this author does not necessarily endorse the view. The author has described the view, but does not necessarily endorse it. B, passage A argues for the superiority of one view over competing views. Nah, while passage B considers only a single view. No, I'm looking for, notice what's so good about A, right? Espouses a general view and then sketches, it doesn't say it, but sketches a specific argument underneath that view. So I like the big picture of A. B, I don't like the big picture at all, because it wasn't like, hey, this is one over the other and this one's just one opinion. No way. C, passage A invokes commonly held principles to support a policy recommendation, while passage B relies on the views of established authorities to support its claims. What? There's a couple things that are wrong with C. That's the answer that is most commonly chosen wrong, but it's wrong twice at least. So the commonly held principles, unless I'm missing something, what are those commonly held principles? The author of passage A never said anything like everybody believes this or most people believe that. That wasn't in the passage. The author was stating their position for sure. And there were principles involved. But they never said, oh, because we generally believe this thing. And then passage B, there are no established authorities supporting any claims in passage B. They just didn't do that. It wasn't like, well, because Senator so-and-so says this, then therefore that's what we should do. That was not there at all. So I've got at least 2 reasons to get rid of C. D, passage A briefly states a view, then provides an argument for it, while passage B provides a detailed statement of a view, but no argument. Now, they were both making an argument. The first half of D is wrong too, because the passage A was not stating a view, then giving justification. Passage A was just like, hey, here's how things should be. E, passage A provides an argument in support of a view, while passage B attempts to undermine a view. No. General thing, specific application. A is the only one that has that in it, so A is the only answer we can pick. Laura.
I got hung up on A because of the phrase without providing details. I thought that since in the first little paragraph, they kind of talked about the 2 principles and then explicitly said, oh, here's point 1 about principle of justice and acquisition, then here's point 2. That's where I thought they were kind of expounding on it. So I didn't think A could be right because of the detail part.
I was so happy when they said you didn't provide details because they did not give me those damn principles. Like, what are the principles? If you don't give me the principles, then you are not providing details. Yes. Does that not convince you?
Not totally.
Interesting. Were you as mad as I was when you were reading that passage?
I was convoluted, but I understood what it meant. So I thought
You
that
did?
yeah.
Really? So how should people how do we know if somebody rightfully owns something?
Whether or not they adhered to the 2 principles. I was just taking the passage really literally.
Yeah, what principles?
Justice and acquisition or justice and transfer.
And what the hell do those principles say?
Because to me, they outlined the theory of okay, either they're entitled to it.
They don't say shit. There's a whole lot of nothing here, Laura. This argument could be used for absolutely anybody's purposes. We do not know what the principles are. The details were not provided. It was a whole bunch of highfalutin garbage about, well, follow this principle to be justified. And then if you're justified, then you're entitled, or whatever. What was the word they said? Entitled. Yeah. Entitled to it. And then and if you don't follow the principle of justice and acquisition, then you're not entitled to it. And then when you transfer it, as long as you transfer it from someone who did get it according to the principle of acquisition, someone who previously was entitled to it, then if you transfer it according to the principle of transfer, justice and transfer, then they're going to be entitled to it. And that's the only way they could possibly be entitled to it. And if they're not entitled to it, then we need to get mad about it. And we need to go in and rectify and fix the situation. But without espousing the principles, you could use this argument to say that anyone, like, just, well, here's the principle of justice in acquisition. If it's me, then I'm justified. And here's the principle of justice in transfer. If it's a transfer to me, then it's justified. So I just wrote rules whereby all the property, everything in the world only belongs to me. Like any other property can't belong to anybody, because I spelled out my own personal principles. Starting to pick it up?
I think so. Basically just that they're general enough that they could just be subjective and kind of used for whatever purpose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, don't be snowed by this like word justice. That's okay. All they're saying is there are rules that have to be followed, but they did not tell you the rules. Salma?
Yeah, I just had a question about the second part of A, about that it does not necessarily endorse in light of the very last sentence of passage B, because it says the original wrong can most easily be righted by whatever. So I thought
know,
that,
but it's the first sentence, Salma. The first sentence, the part before the colon, that qualifies, that limits the author's position for everything that comes after that.
as like someone else's hypothetical view.
One natural way of reasoning about it is this. You know, one natural way of reason, you see the sun go across the sky? Well, one natural way of reasoning about that is that the sun goes around the earth. One might almost say it's obvious.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with your own opinion. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, I do not think that the sun goes around the earth. But I can say one might almost say obvious way of reasoning about the sun traveling across the sky every day is that the sun goes around the earth. That is a natural, obvious way of reasoning about it. But I'm not endorsing the view.
Okay, thanks.
Michaela.
Hi, thank you. So I can understand, I had initially eliminated A because I falsely assumed, which I now understand, that the sketches argument, blah, 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 necessarily endorsed. So I understand A. But can you talk a little bit about C, where it says B relies on the views of established authorities to support its claims? I didn't totally like this answer choice, but I chose it because I thought that did ring true, especially when it goes to like that 1790 federal government law. So can you talk
That law apparently wasn't followed. I mean, they never say, they say what the purpose of the law was, but then they immediately start talking about suits that have been initiated by Native American tribes for recovery of lands held by them when the Non-Intercourse Act took effect, which is like, oh, so the purpose of the law was to protect them, but maybe the effect of the law was that it took their shit away. That's not citing an authority. In order to cite established authorities, it would be like, well, the Ten Commandments says this, and the Constitution says that, and the Magna Carta says that, or, whatever, any authority, just like cite an expert. And Alex Rodriguez says this about how to hit a baseball, and but there wasn't any of that. There just was not like, well, because of authorities, that's why I'm right. That's what C's describing, and they didn't do it. Maria, and then Ariana, and then I'm gonna hold the rest of the questions there. I really want you to abuse Eric and Abigail and Taylor. They're all here to help you. You can hit them up in the chat, please. But yeah, who am I talking to?
I guess I was trying to understand why.
Can anybody? Maria, you blanked out there for quite a bit. Want to try again?
Oh yeah. When it says one might almost say obvious, I thought that was their personality coming through. I didn't really think they were talking hypothetically.
Yeah, I almost didn't catch it either. And I might not have caught it in the moment, and I might have, but still, then I would have eliminated all 5 answers, because I wasn't going to pick any of those other answers. Those answers are wrong, like for sure wrong, all of them, B, C, D, E, all of them wrong. And so I would have to then return to A and think it through. And if I reread that paragraph, it's just, again, Maria, I want to just give you I think this example can make it really clear. Okay. If I just say one natural, one might almost say obvious way of reasoning about the fact that the sun travels across the sky is to think that the sun travels around the earth. And I could develop that more, but I'm still not endorsing the view. I'm just telling you that this is a natural and one might say obvious way of reasoning about it. But one might say is not the same thing as I say. Follow?
Yeah, I followed that part. It was just really the obvious, like in parentheses for me, that really caught me off guard, because that just seems like something I would do to show personality through the text, even though it still says one. So but I do
Yeah,
get what you're saying, though.
I don't think personality really has anything to do with it. I think that they could say, I mean, if I was going to say this is obvious, I would say it's obvious. I wouldn't say one might almost say it's obvious. In fact, when you read it again, one might almost say obvious. Well, the author is clearly not saying it's obvious. The author is saying someone might say it's obvious, but that's not the same thing as saying I think it's obvious. Let me talk to Ariana, and then we got to keep it moving to Logic Game.
Hi. So for 27, obviously it says like a general view is espoused without providing details. And I guess my question is that in passage A, it says that the principle of justice in acquisition specifies like so and so conditions, but doesn't specifically say what those conditions are.
Yes,
So
that's not the details.
So yeah, then it's providing this general view without the details by saying that. Okay.
Yeah, the conditions could be like, if you're white, it's yours. Or the conditions could be, if you're not white, it's yours. I don't know what the conditions are. So the principles, they really were not specified. There was a description, an abstract description of the principles, that these principles exist and these principles spell out certain conditions. But if you don't tell me what the actual conditions are, then I have no idea whose team these principles are playing for at all.
Yeah, I think what makes it confusing is like when you continue reading, it says like given such principles. So it's making it seem like it evaluated those principles.
Yeah, they were never given. We need to read really carefully, y'all. This is lawyer shit, okay? This is how it's going to be. In law school and in your career, this is exactly what you're going to be doing. You're going to be doing hyper close reading so that you know exactly what the document says. And in this case, this is like, definitely there's a dividing line between the haves and the have-nots on this passage specifically, okay? This is a great example where if you know what you're doing on LSAT reading comprehension, you get done reading that and you're like, but I have no idea what the principles are. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know what you're doing in LSAT reading comprehension, then you describe passage A as, oh, well, it says the principles by which we can acquire and transfer property. So like, it's a useful document. You could look at that and it could tell you what land is properly owned and what's improperly owned. But that's like, well, then you missed it, because they didn't actually ever tell you what the principles were. And you should be annoyed by that, because you should be reading the documents closely enough to notice that they just didn't tell you. Mm-hmm. It's like they were pretending that they were telling you.
Yeah.
But they never told you.
Thank
you. Feel that?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. I want to point out a couple things. We've got, if you just click let me actually, just real quickly, I'm going to share my screen. For those who are new or unfamiliar, I just want to make sure everybody knows all of the amazing features in the daemon. We've got explanations. This hides and unhides your answer. there's explanations up here and we got lots of them. Okay. So for this question, there's 3 videos and a written explanation. And if that's not enough, if you're still not satisfied, if it hasn't clicked for you 100%, there's this ask button up here and you can tell our team exactly what it is that you're not understanding about the answer choice or the explanation. Please obviously review the explanation thoroughly first and then use that ask button, but it's a killer feature of LSAT Demon, and I really hope everybody tries it because it's just super cool. Thank you to Abigail and Eric and Taylor. Have all of you have done some ask help, or maybe, yeah. Okay, cool. That's Abigail's team though, and they do a fantastic job. We've also got upvoting and downvoting on all the explanations. So the theory is that the best explanation is going to rise to the top. People seem to really like this video from Ben. Give that a shot after class if you're still not 1000%. And please do that for all the other questions. Okay. I know you guys struggled with some of these other questions. I saw the survey results. Please, after class, because we don't have time to do them all right now, but after class, maybe tonight or tomorrow, go back in and review the other questions that you missed. Check out the videos, written explanation if there is one, which there is again here, and the ask button if you're still confused. It's critical that you not move on from your mistakes. In class, we necessarily have to, but in your self-study, you really have to review those mistakes. And it's even more critical for our free students and our basic students and our premium students. The people who aren't in live classes like this, the critical thing that you can be doing is thoroughly reviewing every mistake. It's not about how many practice tests can you do or like what kind of lessons can I review on question types or whatever. No, what did you miss? And then get serious about why you missed it. So that's what those resources are there for. Okay, I'm going to move us along to a logic game. And I'm actually going to use my whiteboard a little bit. And if you're a continuing student and, like if you think you're good at the games, you don't have to listen to my explanation here at the front. But for those who are like brand new, I'm going to make some brief comments, and I might get on the whiteboard right now. The game says there are exactly, everybody get a piece of scratch paper. Work out the game on your scratch paper, please. There are exactly 3 recycling centers in Rivertown. That's Center 1, Center 2, Center 3. Exactly 5 kinds of material are recycled at these recycling centers, and that's glass, newsprint, plastic, tin, and wood. Exactly 5 kinds of material are recycled at these recycling centers. So we are going to see glass, newsprint, plastic, tin, and wood at some point in this game. You've got to use all 5 of those. Each recycling center recycles at least 2, but no more than 3 of these kinds of material. Okay, so we are going to be seeing multiples here. There's 5 kinds, and we have to use them all. But each center is going to have 2 or 3 of the kinds, and there's 3 centers. So yeah, some stuff is for sure going to be used, going to be recycled at more than 1 center. Second rule says every kind of material that Center 2 recycles is also recycled at Center 1. A pretty powerful rule there. Anything in 2 has to be in 1. That means that if you're not in 1, you can't be in 2. Common sense, but that's just, 2 different ways of looking at the same rule. Last rule says only one of the recycling centers recycles plastic, and that recycling center does not recycle glass. Before I draw anything at all, I want to think through the combinations of the rules. I think maybe I skipped the first rule. Any recycling center that recycles wood also recycles newsprint. So if you see wood, there has to be newspaper there as well. That kind of makes sense, actually, if we know that newspaper comes from wood. So if there's wood there, there's going to be also newsprint there. Makes sense. If W, then N. Got it. But the second and third rule, I think, have an intersection, which is, yeah, for sure, recycling, Center 2 cannot recycle plastic, right? For sure. Because if center 2 had plastic, then center 1 would have to have plastic, but the last rule says only one of the recycling centers recycles plastic. So I might start this game by thinking, where's the plastic? Only one of the recycling centers recycles the plastic, and it can't be recycling center 2. Could be recycling center 1, could be recycling center 3, and maybe I would just start with that, and so what that would look like, let me just show you. Sorry, I got to fix my glare a little bit, but I'll work on that while you guys are working on the game more. So what I'm thinking is, if you've got wood, sorry, I'm going to split based on plastic, right? So you can draw a line right down the middle of your page if that's helpful. Center 1, 2, 3, center 1, 2, 3, and 1 could have plastic or 3 could have plastic. And then that's it. That's your only plastic. That's the world we're living in. I mean, maybe you can't see the top of my board. Yeah, these are the worlds we're living in, right? Every solution to the game has to have plastic in center 1 or plastic in center 3, and there are no more plastics. So the only thing you have left now is wood, newsprint, tin, and glass. I could write that down if I don't want to forget my players. GN WT. I'll just write them over here. GNWT. Because I don't have any more P's, right? So it's like I get to forget about P from now on. And then the only rules are, if you've got wood, you've got to have newsprint. And if you're in center 2, you have to be in center 1. Oh, and you have to fill at least 2 spots. Let me make one more inference. In the world where center 1 has plastic, center 1 has to have 3 types of things. And the reason why it has to have 3 types of things is that center 2 has to have at least 2 types of things. And center 2 can't have plastic, though. So there has to be 2 more things that are going to be in center 1. So I know for sure that center 1 in that world has 3 things. I'll let you guys work on it from there. Take 10 minutes to work on it. Please upload your scratch paper. You've got a huge opportunity here to show us how you're working on these games. So if you upload your scratch paper to the Google form when you're ready, then Abigail and Eric and Taylor will all be able to take a look in the background and give you private one-on-one feedback. This is something that I do always in my Wednesday, Thursday classes. Enjoy, have fun, good luck, be creative. You don't have to start it this way. You can start it however you want. Good luck. I'm just going to go ahead and teach my way through it here. So new video just in case. This is test J, game 4. I am going to make worlds here. I'm starting with P in the background. I know I've got center 1, 2, and 3, and I know that I have 5 types of things to recycle. Those are G, N, P, T, W. And if you have wood, first rule says if you have wood, you have to have newsprint. Okay, fine. Second rule says everything at center 2 is going to get forced into center 1. I'm just going to hold that one in my head because there's way too many ways. Like I can't just eliminate that rule easily by splitting, but I can eliminate the last rule easily by splitting. Only one of the recycling centers recycles plastic. Okay, in combination with the second rule, if center 2 had plastic, then center 1 would also have to have plastic, but the last rule says you can only have one center that has plastic. So that has to be center 1 or center 3. And I'm going to start there. That center has to have, that center cannot have glass. So no glass here in center 1, no glass here in center 3. Well, where can the glass go then? And this is where, if you think it through, and it's just because I want to eliminate the rule, right? I knew that plastic could only go in 2 places. I did finish the rule by saying, okay, so glass can't go there, glass can't go there. But then the next question is, well, what happens? Like, where does glass go? You have to use glass somewhere. Where is that glass? And when I think this through, I believe that glass has to be, in this world, glass has to be in 2 or 3. But anything that's in 2 has to also be in 1. So glass actually can't go in 2 here. So it has to go in 3. And you might have made a split here. If you split based on G, that's nice, but you should realize pretty quickly that the second you put G in 2, this world dies. So here G just has to be in 3. And that's it for G. And now the only thing we have left in this world is just, okay, what about N, W, and T? Over here, the world where plastic is in center 3, where can the glass go? Well, wait a second. It can't go in 2. If glass went in 2, then it would have to go in 1. So in this world, center 1 actually has to have glass. So in 2 worlds, I have killed plastic and glass both. The plastic and the glass can only look like this or like this. I guess I'll underline it just for consistency. And then I'm playing a real simple game, okay? All I'm thinking about at this point is W, N, and T. T's kind of a wild card, right? Like T can just go wherever it wants. But if you have wood, you have to have newsprint. But there's plenty, I mean, I'm pretty sure, yeah, wood could go in any of the centers in both worlds. So you could make a further split here, but I kind of think that I kind of think I'll just go tackle the questions because I feel like this crushes it pretty hard. So yeah, let's see how that goes. Number 18 is a list question. I'm always going to do it by just a pretty simple process of elimination. Which one of the following could be an accurate account of all the kinds of material recycled at each recycling center in Rivertown? I just have to make sure that I apply all the rules properly. So first thing, make sure that every center has 2 or 3 things. Just scanning the answer choices here. Every answer has 2 or 3 things in every center. Okay, so that's fine. Anytime I see wood, I have to see newsprint at that same center. That gets rid of A because wood is in center 3, but not newsprint. Just looking for wood here and making sure that newsprint is there. So B's okay because wood is in 3 with newsprint. C, wood is in 1 with newsprint. That's fine. D, wood is in 3 with newsprint. That's fine. E, wood is in 1 with newsprint. That's good. And 2 with newsprint. That's also good. Okay, fine. First rule is gone. Second rule, every kind of material that center 2 recycles is also recycled at center 1. Okay, so scan the remaining answers and just make sure that they match. So B has G, N, and T. Yeah, B looks good. C has G, N, and T. Oh, and then G, N, and W. So center 2, not everything in center 2 is in center 1 with C. So C's out. D, center 2 is glass and tin. Center 1 is glass, plastic, and tin, and that's fine. If you got stuck here, it means you didn't really read the rule properly. The rule said that any recycling center that recycles wood also recycles newsprint. That does not have to happen the other way around, and that's why D here is still alive. All I'm looking for is if you got wood, you have to have newsprint. E, center 1 has wood with newsprint, and center 2 wood with newsprint. Oh, wait, sorry, I skipped rule. Wow, I freaked out there looking at the wrong rule. D, center 2 has glass and tin. Center 1 has glass and tin and plastic. That's fine. E, that's what I meant to do. Center 2 has newsprint, plastic, and wood. Center 1 has newsprint, plastic, and wood. We're looking good still. Last rule, there's only 1 plastic, and that plastic cannot be with glass. B, center 3 has plastic, and there's no glass there. So I think that's going to be the answer. I've got to eliminate D and E here. If I'm right. There's only 1 plastic in center 1, but it's with glass. So that gets rid of D. And then there's 2 plastics in E. And I'm 100% certain that the answer for number 18 is B, and then I would move on. I'm going to do the if questions next, so I'm actually going to skip 19. I'm going to do 20. These if questions can kind of get the ball rolling, especially when I didn't have flesh out like crazy worlds. This is awesome, though. Okay, I've already killed this game because just this split, just these 2 worlds, I already know too much about the game to have a hard time. So number 20, if center 2 recycles 3 kinds of material, which one of the following kinds of material must center 3 recycle? Well, okay, so do I know what world I'm in if center 2 has 3 things? And I do. I know I'm in this world in order for center 2 to have 3 things, because in this world, center 1 has plastic. And remember, center 2 can never have plastic. So anything in center 2 has to be in center 1. Well, that means center 2 is going to have two different things, but not plastic. And so I'm not in this world. If center 2 has three things, I'm in this world, the world where center 3 has plastic. And that's the answer for number 20. So here's an example of worlds barely even filled out at all, still predicting one of the answers to one of the questions. And I'll be kind of surprised if that doesn't happen again as I answer those remaining questions. 21 says, if each recycling center in Rivertown recycles exactly 3 kinds of material, then which one of the following could be true? Again, I can't be in this world because in this world, center 2 only has 2 things. I would have to be in this world in order for all the centers to have 3 things. So what could be true in this world if every center has 3 things? Well, center 2 would have to have glass for sure. And then, I don't know, it seems like there's a few combinations. Let me see if I can do it by process of elimination. A, only center 2 recycles glass. That's not possible. Center 2 can have glass, but if it does, then center 1, and also in this world, center 1 already has glass. So it is not possible ever for only center 2 to recycle glass. How about only center 3 recycles newsprint? So I go wood and newsprint here. And then here and here. So let me just see if I can fill it out and make the game make sense. If only center 3 recycles newsprint, well, then it can also be it's also the only one that has wood. It has to be the only one that has wood. Because if you have wood, you have to have newsprint. So center 3 then would be wood and newsprint here. How can I fill out center 2? Well, this would have to be a G. And then who's left? I've got to use T still. So I could put T here and here. And then I could use, but like who's left, right? There's nobody else. I mean, I already got G, I already got T. And if I have wood, I have to have newsprint. And if I don't have wood, I still would have to have newsprint to get to 3 things because there's just not enough players. There's only 5 types of things. So yeah, no, that won't work either. Not in this world anyway. Sorry, I always misplace my eraser. There it is. How about, is it possible in this world for only center 1 to recycle plastic? No, because plastic's in center 3. How about only center 3 recycles tin? Maybe. I don't know. Well, like tin's a wild card, right? Tin's really flexible. I would think that tin could be here and here, or just here, or just, no, not just here if they have 3 things, but just here, yeah. So I go plastic, tin, and newsprint. And then over here, I go glass, wood, newsprint, wood. Oh, sorry. Wood, newsprint, wood, and newsprint. So yeah, that does it. This right here, you'd have newsprint across the board. But center 3 is the only one that has tin, and they do have 3 things, and I've used everything. Yeah, that's good. That'll work. Answer for number 21 is going to be D. How about only center 1 recycles wood? Now, if center 2 has 3 things, then center 1 has to match it exactly. So it can't be the case that only center 1 requires wood if center 2 has a full boat. Answer for number 21 is D. Had to do a little bit of work there within this world. If I had split further when I started, then that question would have been a little easier. There's an art to it. There's not one right way. Sometimes I'll have to do, if I have skeletal worlds, sometimes I'll have to do a little more work on some of the questions, but I also, with skeletal worlds like this, can predict the answer sometimes to the questions, which is great. Okay, 22. If center 3 recycles glass. Well, okay, so I'm not in this world, because that's the world where center 3 has plastic, no glass. I have to be in this world where center 3 has plastic. Has glass. I also know in that world that center 1 has plastic and center 2 only has 2 things. What does center 2 have to recycle? So if I'm in this world, what has to be here? And that's an inference that I just haven't made. Strange. So an example, I guess, of where if I would have made a further split here, I would have made an inference that there's something here that I'm missing. So it's not plastic and it's not glass. Oh, I know what it is. I've got wood, newsprint, and tin. And the problem is I have to have two of them. So think through the combinations. Wood and newsprint, or newsprint and tin. But wood and tin doesn't work because wood requires newsprint, and this is the world where center 2 only has two things because center 1 had plastic. So it's newsprint is going to be the answer to that question. Everybody, please just be careful with your microphones. Thank you. So it's newsprint here. And I could just write it in now. I didn't make the inference until I was answering question number 22. But yeah, newsprint has to be here. It could be wood and newsprint, or it could be tin and newsprint, but it can't just be wood and tin. So yeah, so this has to be newsprint, and that's the answer for number 22. Number 23 says, if center 1 is the only recycling center that recycles wood. So that could happen here. You could put wood and newsprint there. And then here you don't put newsprint, so you have to put tin. And then over here, you don't put wood, but you put newsprint or tin or both. So it does work over here. Over here, if center 1 is the only center that recycles wood, then I would have wood and newsprint. So let me think about center 2. Center 2 would have to have glass and newsprint because it has to have two things, and center 1 has to have those things. So yeah, center 2 could have glass and newsprint. And then over here, there's no wood, but there could still be tin or newsprint or both. So both of these worlds are going to be tin or newsprint or both. Which one of the following could be a complete and accurate list of the kinds of material that one of the recycling centers recycles? Wow. Okay, so is it possible for somebody to have just plastic and tin? Well, over here, if I didn't mess anything up, I think center 3 could have plastic and tin. So it seems like that is a possibility. How about just newsprint and wood? Well, here I got plastic, here it's newsprint and tin, here it's glass, here's glass. Yeah, no, just wood and newsprint. I don't see that happening. Just newsprint and tin? No, it just didn't happen. Just glass and wood? Glass and newsprint? Glass, wood, and newsprint? I mean, just glass and wood is kind of silly, right?
Your first world is wrong, by the way.
Hold on a second, Philip. E, can I have just glass and tin? I don't see any world. Oh, right here I have glass and tin, and now, okay, I made him, I got stuck, and now Philip's gonna bail me out. What did I do wrong over here, Philip?
If you had in column 2 NT, then column 1 would have to have a T in there too, but you filled out WN. So that's wrong
this
anyway.
doesn't work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. This doesn't work because if I have wood and newsprint here, then what is going to go on in 2? Yeah, newsprint and tin, that doesn't work. So this whole side doesn't work, and that's why the answer for number 23 is not E. Thank you, Philip. And the answer for number 23 is A, by process of elimination. Last question in the game is number 19. By the way, what would have happened there? I would have got stuck. I went a little too fast when I was making this world. I would have thought that A and E both worked, so I would have got stuck. I would have had to kind of rethink my solution there. I went a little too fast and I made a mistake. That would have been bad. Number 19, which one of the following is a complete and accurate list of the recycling centers in Rivertown, any one of which could recycle plastic? And boy, my worlds just killed it. This game kind of walked right into my two worlds. The answer is just center 1 and center 3. And so the answer for number 19 is going to be D, and that is the game. Do you have questions or comments about that? That was a fun one. I like that game. I remember struggling with that game in the past. But did you guys see right through it and just go, nah, it's just plastic and glass, and there's only two ways to do it? Questions, comments? Eric and Abigail will take the rest of the class looking at your diagrams in the background. If you want help on, hey, here's what I did, but I screwed up somehow, please use their time. They are well-paid LSAT tutors and excellent with their students, and they would love to help you. So please do reach out. Hi, Haley's here, also from LSAT Demon. Thank you for filling in, Haley. Appreciate all y'all's help. Mina has a question.
Hi everyone. I'm so sorry I can't turn on my camera. At the moment, my time is like 2 a.m. So it's really late where I am. So it's more of a comment, it's not a question. So this game was really easy for me because I went with plastic in center 1 or center 3, and I mean it was a breeze through. I think I finished the game in 6-7 minutes.
Yeah.
So yes, this world really helped. So I just wanted to state that. Thank you.
Oh, that's nice of you. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I appreciate it. Worlds, it's amazing. It's like these games are simpler than you think. It's not like, it doesn't have to be technical. You just think through the puzzle, and they give you all the information you need to solve the game, and you can frequently solve pieces of it before you ever even look at the questions. And on this game, yeah, making these two worlds, and then if you can, making the inference that newsprint always has to go there, you just end up destroying this game. Justin.
Hi, thanks. So worlds are like brand new to me. So unfortunately, I did this game with an old method, and I'm trying to get the worlds down. When do you, I guess, know when to stop as far as breaking down all the possibilities? Like for this one, I just did it this time. I originally did it doing the old method that I had learned, and obviously this method's way better, but I went through and I basically diagrammed all the possibilities out, but you just stopped here. When do you know when is the right place to stop?
Well, I said it while I was doing the explanation, is that there's not really a right answer to that. But today, while I was doing this game today, why didn't I split it further? The reason why I didn't split further is because the rule about, I had two rules left, which is center 2 and center 1 have to have anything in center 2 has to go to center 1. But like here I should have maybe thought about it, because the combinations here for center 2, there's actually only 3 things that you can have, and only 2 of them will even work. So newsprint does have to go for sure in center 2 there. But am I gonna eliminate, which then forces newsprint into center 1, by the way. Center 1 always has newsprint.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true? Is that right? Could I have gone further?
That's accurate for that side, yeah, when you break it down.
Yeah, it is. So there's like, that's not even a split, right, Justin? That's just a baby step that I missed. But that's my point, kind of, is that worlds, it's so good that you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to do it correctly, right? You can't make missteps. But if you don't see all the shortcuts, that's okay, because there's plenty of shortcuts. This would have made it even easier if I would have realized, oh shit, in this world, if I put plastic here, then center 2 only has 2 things, and it can't have glass ever. So if it's not plastic, it's not glass. It's 2 out of the 3 of wood, newsprint, and tin. So it has to have newsprint. So center 1 has to have newsprint. Okay, now what's left? Well, what's left is I've got the whole wood newsprint thing in play over here, right? Wood can go in any group. In this world, I still could have wood here, which wouldn't do anything because newsprint's there, but I could have wood and newsprint here, I think. If I start splitting, it's like, wow, how many worlds would I have to make? It just feels like a million. Like this is a real simple split, right? Plastic is either in 1 or 3. And then that tells you something about glass. And then you start learning about other things. And Katie, the reason why Center 2 has to have newsprint in this world is because Center 2 has to have at least 2 things, right? Can't have plastic, can't have glass. Only remaining things that it could possibly have are wood, newsprint, and tin, but it has to have 2 of them. So it could have wood and newsprint, or it could have tin and newsprint, but wood and tin won't work.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, I wasn't really finished, I don't think, answering your question. The other rule was the Center 2 has to have everything in Center 2 has to be in Center 1. But how do I get rid of that rule by splitting? I think what I would have done is said, does it have wood or does it not have wood?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I would have chosen that is because, it's simple, it's binary. I mean, it either does or does not have wood. When it has wood, it also has to have newsprint. Also, that's going to get forced into Center 1. So I could have split each of these based on does Center 2 have wood. I would have gone from 2 to 4. I don't love doubling. I would like it better if I couldn't have wood in one of those spots, then I could split just one of the worlds. You'll see though, you can learn how to do this, and you can just transform your Logic Games performance. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that at basic level of the Demon subscription by just doing games all the time and watching all our videos. We have amazing videos about making worlds. Same thing with the premium subscription. We also have these lessons about how to make worlds. And then in the live classes, you'll see our teachers doing this type of stuff on the board. I was just reading teaching notes from Taylor, and she was talking about doing multiple different setups for the same game today. She did that in our Game of the Day class. So just keep trying, Justin. You'll develop it over time. There's an art to it. Practice a lot. There's not really one right answer. If you saw me do this game again, like 6 months when I've forgotten, I very likely might have split it again, or I might have made a different first split. It's just like this. I don't know. It's like you're asking me like, well, how do you know when to do a crossover dribble instead of behind the back? And it's like, well, you just kind of like, you play a lot and then you develop some skills. Amal, and then Cassandra.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, next time maybe I'll show myself when I'm not sick.
That's okay.
I just wanted to confirm question 23.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know you just went over it, but so the reason why the answer is A is because Center 2 can have it can have tin or glass, right?
I already erased my solution for question number
Okay, so
23. So tell you what, we post the class videos after class. You can watch that video. You can also talk to, in the background, just text or just chat to Eric and Abigail and Haley if you want, and people will sort you out. Thank you, Amal. Cassandra?
Hi. How do you get faster at doing these games? Like, I got the worlds concept down and I could figure it out, but I'm just so slow with it.
Keep practicing. There's 400 Logic games to play. How many have you done, Cassandra, out of the 400?
Like 150?
How many?
Maybe like 150?
Okay, so you're almost halfway done with all of the games. Your competitors sometimes are doing all of the games. If that's what it takes, you just do all of the games. It's not as daunting a task as you might think. If you did one section a day, it would take you roughly 3 months.
Okay.
I mean, that's a lot, but like, that's what lawyers do. They prepare their asses off. And I think just repetition and then watch videos. Come to classes if you're a live Demon subscriber. Come ask questions. Asking questions is great. But it really does boil down to like, do a lot of games.
Okay. Thank you.
Edward says, I feel like games is my worst section. Well, guess what, Edward? You and everybody else, when they first start with the LSAT, it's really common. it is more than 50% easily. Games is your hardest section when you start. Games was my worst section when I started. And then through a couple, 3 months worth of practice, I started doing it perfectly every time. Not every time. You guys saw me make a mistake in that explanation that I just did. But point is, I was able to crush the games after practicing for a while. I did a timed section every day, maybe 2 timed sections a day, and thoroughly reviewed them. That was a long time ago, though. Now with the Demon, you can just drill in games, and the Demon will just give you a game, and you just do a game, and then do another one. And the Demon will time you while you're doing the games, and if it takes you too long, then the next game it's going to give you kind of an easier one. If you do it really well and accurately, then it'll give you kind of a harder one. That's the magic of the drilling in the Demon. Helpful? Cool. If you still have questions, ask our team in the background, please. I'm going to move on now. I don't really think that you should perfect games first before moving on to the other sections. I think you should stay balanced. I think you can always be getting better at all of the tests all the time. We started tonight with reading comprehension, and I meant to say that when you get to the game or the games is reading comprehension too. You've got to read it carefully. You've really got to understand it. You got to know what they're asking you in the questions, and it is related to reading comprehension. Logical reasoning, I think, is maybe the most fun part of the test, at least it is for me, and that's what we're going to do next. I would be doing a little bit all the time, just for variety. It's like cross-training instead of just doing just one thing. That said, you do need to perfect the games. You're leaving money on the table if you don't perfect the games. And I really mean it, perfect. I've seen people go from 3 points in the section to 23 points, which is all there are in the section, through proper study. And if you don't do it, I don't know. I think you don't want it bad enough. There's so much money on the line. I think you should perfect your logic games. You can get like 10 or 15 more LSAT points just by perfecting your logic games. That's the difference between not getting into a school and getting a full ride scholarship to that same school. So if you're that bad at the games, so do it, perfect them. I really want perfect on the logic games. Leon, and then we're going to move on to logical reasoning.
Hey, I just wanted to ask you about the relationship between wood and newsprint. And so I guess what was tripping me up was wood and newspaper versus newspaper and wood, because I think some of the choices had newsprint and then wood over there, or
it's not about sequencing. It's just that if you have wood, you have to have newsprint. But that does not apply the other way around. If you have, you can have just newsprint without wood.
Right.
But it's never, this game, it wasn't about the order. So if you're worried in the answer choices that it was like, well, you said newsprint would, and that doesn't matter. It's just that center has these things. Yeah.
I guess that was what's tripping me up. Thank you.
Yep. And that question right there, Leon, the questions wouldn't have been answerable if you had interpreted it where the order mattered, right? And that's a thing where you should, because we know that the games make perfect sense. We know that the games are correct every time. Like there's one right answer and 4 wrong answers every single time. So if you get to a point where, wait, one of these questions is unanswerable because it said newsprint would, and it's supposed to say would newsprint, or maybe I have 2 correct answers or I have no correct answers. If you get to that point, then that's where you catch yourself and you go, but wait a second, the test has to make perfect sense. I must be misinterpreting something. And hopefully you figure out that the order can't matter in the answer choices, because if it did, then the game just would be broken, right?
Right. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, we are going, moving right along to logical reasoning, and we have questions on the syllabus. And you know what? I think I'm going to give you some time to work on all 3 of these. And then when we come back, I'll ask you which ones gave you the hardest time. So 3 logical reasoning questions on the syllabus. I'll give you about 10 minutes. I think that should be plenty of time. And then I probably will review all 3 of them, which means that I'm going to have to run a little bit long. Hope you guys don't mind. You're not no obligation to stay. If you want to leave, leave. But do these 3 questions, do your best. The team is going to post a poll so you can tell me which ones gave you the hardest time. And then I'll just answer all 3 of them for you when I come back. What happened? We apparently we selected the easiest logical reasoning questions ever. I'll go ahead and do all of them for you, and we'll see if they're actually that easy. Test 65, Section 1, Question 1. In a recent study of more than 400 North American men and women whose previous heart attack put them at risk for a second heart attack, about half were told to switch to a, quote, Mediterranean type diet. What's that? Well, that's one that's rich in fish, vegetables, olive oil, and grains, while the other half were advised to eat a more traditional Western diet, but to limit their fat intake. Those following the Mediterranean diet were significantly less likely than those in the other group to have a second heart attack. Oh, did the diet help them? Or did the Western diet hurt the other folks? But it says the Mediterranean diet includes a fair amount of fat from fish and olive oil, so the research suggests that a diet may not have to be extremely low in fat in order to protect the heart, which is making an assumption, though, that the Mediterranean diet was actually protecting the hearts of the people who ate it. You don't know that. You just know that they had they didn't have a second heart attack as much as the other group did. But that could be because the Western diet, with half of its fat intake, could still be really bad for you. It just doesn't have to be that the Mediterranean diet really helped these people. Instead, it could be that the Western diet, oh, you want half my normal fat intake? Okay. And so you only have, one bacon cheeseburger instead of two. I don't know. That could still be giving you a heart attack. And I don't know that it's really fair to say that the Mediterranean diet was protecting these people's heart. Anyway, which one of the following, if true, most strengthens the argument? I don't know. My primary objection was, how do you know that the Western diet wasn't hurting these people? So maybe the right answer will defend against that because it's a strengthening question. So if I have a real good weakener, maybe the opposite of that could be the answer. Research has shown that eliminating almost all fat from one's diet can be effective in decreasing the likelihood of a second heart attack. That doesn't help this argument. That hurts this argument. It's easy to eliminate A. B, studies suggest that the kinds of oils in the fat included in the Mediterranean diet may protect the heart against potentially fatal disruptions of heart rhythms and other causes of heart attacks. That pretty straightforwardly strengthens this argument by providing additional information that makes it more likely to believe that these healthy fats, that there is such a thing as healthy fats, and that these healthy fats have a specific way of protecting the heart against potentially fatal disruptions. And that is an excellent strengthener. Answer is going to be B. C, the patients who consumed the Mediterranean diet enjoyed the food and continued to follow the diet after the experiment was concluded. That doesn't strengthen the argument because the argument was about whether a diet may not have to be extremely low in fat in order to protect the heart. I mean, it really was about the diet and heart protection. C's like, oh, they liked it. Okay, I don't care. D, many people who have had heart attacks are advised by their cardiologists to begin an exercise regimen in addition to changing their diet. So that's nice. What does that have to do with the argument we were given? Does or does not the Mediterranean diet really protect the heart? D just doesn't help you get there. E, some cardiologists believe that the protection afforded by the Mediterranean diet might be enhanced by drugs that lower blood cholesterol levels. What? E's weird because it assumes that the Mediterranean diet does protect the heart, but then it's also some cardiologists, so it's real weak. It's just one or two cardiologists who think, oh, well, what if you also put drugs? But drugs is a whole new concept. I was trying to strengthen the idea that the Mediterranean diet does, in fact, protect from heart disease. B is the only one that does that, so my answer is B. Carly, what can I do for you?
I just want to make sure I understand that. So I want to make sure I eliminated D the right way. When I saw it, I thought that might be true, but that is not specific to this specific group or diets. It's not specific enough. It's not related to the group that I'm within the argument. Is that correct?
Yeah, the response to D is, so what? Like, if that's true, then your cardiologist is probably telling you that you should exercise. So
but if it had mentioned that one group, the group that had the Mediterranean diet also exercised, then that would be different. That would
actually weaken this argument, right? If it
Okay.
was like the Mediterranean diet folks also were hiking 15 miles a day or something. It's like, oh, well, wait, then maybe it wasn't the diet, maybe it was the hiking that protected their heart.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, next one. Sorry, any other questions? All right, next one. Hey, if anybody has to go, you're not hurting my feelings at all. I do want to thank everybody for coming, no matter what level of subscription you're at. If you're at one of the lower levels of subscription, I hope that today's live class was helpful to you. And if you want a hell of a lot more of that, you should sign up for a month of Demon Live and just give it a shot. It is a way to kickstart yourself into a higher level of LSAT performance. If you like these classes, if you like doing stuff with me, it's not just all with me either. Ben teaches a class. We got all kinds of amazing teachers. Hopefully you'll take advantage of that. Okay. Next one. Test 65, section 1, question 4. Swimming pools should be fenced in to protect children from drowning. Oh, they should? Okay. I mean, what if I don't want to have a fence? Like, that's ugly. What if I don't have kids? You still want me to have a fence around my pool? It's good to be contrary. It's good not to let people tell anybody what they should or should not do. But they say, after saying swimming pools should be fenced in to protect children from drowning, teaching children to swim is even more important. Okay, fine. Yeah. All right. So I guess you're telling me that we should protect them with a fence and we should also teach them how to swim. And there is a principle involved here that applies to child rearing generally. Okay, so we're going to go broader than teach your kid to swim and put a fence around your pool. We're going broader. What is that? Like you should do stuff to protect kids from fatal harm. Is that the principle? And again, they don't tell us the principle, just like the reading comp question that we had earlier today. They don't actually tell us the principle, but here, because they gave us a specific application, right? So we can at least try to infer the principle, which is, oh, so you don't want your kid to drown, so you put up a fence. And also you don't want your kid to drown, so you teach them how to swim. Oh, so what you're saying is maybe you don't just do one thing to protect the kid. Maybe you do two things to protect the kid. Like you yell at them, don't run in the street, but you also put them on a leash. That would be another instance, maybe a more draconian instance of the same principle, if that's the principle. Thus, they say, while we should restrict children's access to the soft drinks and candies advertised on television shows directed toward children, it's even more important to teach them what? So advertising is not really the issue here. It's saying, it says we should restrict the access to those things. So that's like the fence. Put the fence around the pool. You restrict their access to the candy. You lock it up, put it on the top shelf. Don't put it in the house. Don't let them go to the store. You restrict their access. But even more than that, we need to teach them something. What are you going to teach them? I don't know, not to eat that shit. Like why it's bad for you, or teach them how to cope with, like how to have a little bit, but not go too overboard. Like, learning to swim, we want to teach them how to eat sweets without excess. I don't know, something like that. Okay, are we trying to teach them which one of the following most logically completes the passage? That just means like safe, conservative, boring, obvious here. We're just looking to fill in the blank with something that seems like, well, yeah, duh, this would be a good thing to do. Teach them that television can be a good source of accurate information. What? I thought we were trying to restrict access to the poisonous soda and candy that they were buying. that's A's like an opposition thing. It's like, oh, but also, it's not all bad. Nah. Teach them B, that television advertisements are deceptive and misleading. I don't know. That's so broad, man. Like, really going to protect them against all TV advertisements? Maybe some TV advertisements are not deceptive and misleading. C, how to make nutritional choices that are conducive to their well-being. Oh, yeah. Okay. So put a fence around the pool, but teach them to swim. Put a lock on the candy jar, but teach them about good nutritional choices. Yeah, that'll do it. D, teach them the importance of physical activity to health and well-being. Nah, because it's not about it's just not about eating. It's not about soft drinks and candy. The D is like, oh, also you should move every once in a while, but that's a different concept. E, how to creatively entertain themselves without watching television. They're not looking for your like moral, like they're not looking for your personal opinions or like, oh yeah, no, that's a good thing to do, right? That's not the point. The point is finish their analogy. You put a fence around the pool, but you teach them to swim. You put a lock on the candy jar, but you teach them how to make good choices about food. That's why the answer here is C. Questions on that one? All right, one more. Test 65, section 1, question 7. An economist says, government intervention in the free market in pursuit of socially desirable goals can affect supply and demand, thereby distorting prices. Can. So maybe it doesn't always, but it can. What kind of socially desirable goals are we talking about? Well, we might decide together that we really don't want billionaires. We especially don't want billionaires' kids, maybe. That's what we decide. And if we were to decide that that's a socially desirable goal, not to have billionaires or billionaires' kids, we then might intervene in the free market. We might try to stop Google from having a monopoly. But if we did that, so that's my own example of something we might decide is socially desirable and something that we might then pursue. But if we do that, then it could affect supply and demand, thereby distorting prices. Got it. The ethics of such intervention is comparable to that of administering medicines. Wait, what now? I thought we were talking about economics. Now all of a sudden you're switching it to medicines. Or you're saying the ethics of that is similar. Like if you are going to do government intervention, if you are going to try to break up a trust or something, if you're going to do that, then there's ethics there. And those ethics are similar to medical ethics. Okay, so I guess you're going to tell me about medical ethics. Most medicines have harmful as well as beneficial effects. So the use of a type of medicine is ethically justified. Oh, here's the actual rule. Only when its non-use would be significantly more harmful than its use. I don't need to read anymore. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to think about what they've already said. I'm going to finish their thought for them. Because you said it was comparable. You said the ethics are comparable. So then what you're saying is that that government intervention in the free market is justified only when its non-use would be significantly more harmful than its use. So when if you didn't do it, it would be a disaster. Like it would be worse than whatever the negative consequences are. Like it's worth it. Yeah, that cancer medication, it's poison, but I'm going to give it to you anyway because you need it. Otherwise you'll die. So that's where the non-use would be significantly more harmful than its use. So for a government intervention in the free market, I'm looking for, if we don't do this, it crushes us. So we have to do it. A, would likely be approved of by a majority of the affected participants. Now, your doctor's not prescribing you drugs by democratic vote. B, it has been shown to have few, if any, significantly harmful effects. No, because that cancer drug could actually be poison. I mean, it could actually be slowly killing you. And it is. Chemotherapy is like you'll die from that. But the thing is, you'll die from cancer sooner if you don't do the chemo. So you got to do the chemo. Hopefully we can knock the cancer back and get off the chemo, but it could have significantly harmful effects. C is believed unlikely to significantly exacerbate any existing problems. Oh, absolutely not. You know, oh, you feel shitty now, cancer patient? Wait till we give you some chemotherapy. Wait till we give you some radiation. No, you're not sleeping? Okay, well, you're really not going to sleep once we start doing this to you. They didn't say it can't ever have any harmful effects. D, would do less damage than would result from the government's not intervening. Yeah, duh. Hopefully we predicted that. If you think it through, that's the only way to really, I mean, they could do it in infinite different words, combinations of words, but it's clear that that's what they were trying to say was, well, if the harm is worse, then you don't take the cure. But if the harm, if the harm you're avoiding is worse, then it's worth it, even if there's negative side effects. But yeah, if you're going to do it, you have to do less damage than non-intervention. So the answer is D. E provides a solution to some otherwise insoluble problem. No, because they never said that like we're only going to prescribe a type of medicine if there are no other solutions. They just didn't say that. They said you're justified only if its harm is not as bad as the harm of not doing it. That's what D says. That's why D is the answer. Those were some easy LRs. We do a lot harder LRs in many of our classes, but those are some training wheels, logical reasoning. You know, it is good to do a bunch of easy stuff every once in a while, just so that you recognize how easy the LSAT actually is. When you're shocked at how simple it is, when you think like, wait, that's too good to be true, that's the answer. That's the answer. It is actually that easy. And that's what we do at LSAT Demon is we try to help you at every level. We try to help you start to see how simple the LSAT actually is. And we've had damn good results with people improving 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. We've seen people knocking on the door of 40 points of improvement. I believe we recently got an email about that, which is insane. But yeah, people are really working hard and asking good questions. And we think we have the very best tools and very best resources. So we're super happy to have you here. I know we have the best students for sure. Thank you for all of your participation and your excellent questions. I don't know, where are we at? Eric, Abigail, Haley, anything I'm missing? Are you still getting inundated with questions?
I think the questions have been slowing down.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Eric. There is a feedback form there. You can let us know what you thought of this class. I'm always trying to get better. I'm always tweaking the formula for my class. So tell me what I could do more of and tell me what I could do less of, and I will try to comply. Don't bother saying less swearing though, because it's too late to change. I'm not going to change that. Got to keep it real. Sorry. Wait till you see lawyers. Lawyers swear like sailors. Oh my God. All right. I think I'm going to take off. Maybe Abigail, Eric, Haley will hang out for a few with you and take over the mic and talk to you if you want. I am going to get out of here. Thanks for being here. See you guys around. Good night.
All right. Now, who's got questions? Teacher's gone, so we can play now. If you have any general questions about the LSAT, about our own journeys, about law school admission stuff, please feel free to ask. Hey, what's
question.
Up? Oh, I'm glad that you do. Someone had their hand raised though, so I'm going to go with them first. Nurhan.
Katie was actually, she had the little clapping hands before me.
You know,
so
you go. Oh, okay.
It's okay. I clicked the wrong one. That's on me. Okay. So I know in LR, the general like rule is to create your objections to the argument or kind of try to find the flaws between the conclusion, like between the premise and the conclusion. But is that worth doing when you have like a must be true or like a most supported question stem? But I also know that you shouldn't read the stem before you read the stimulus. So
Yeah, if you read the stimulus or if you read the passage and there is not a conclusion, meaning it's not an argument, then you can pretty much anticipate it's going to be some version of a must be true or a most strongly supported question. In which case, yeah, you're not looking to tear apart an argument if it doesn't exist. But what I often find is helpful on must be trues is to predict what the conclusion might have been if there was one. I think that's often what makes for a good must be true prediction, is like, if there was another sentence that said therefore, etc.
Right.
It doesn't always work, but you should be thinking along those lines anyways. Like, given these facts all together, what does that lead me to conclude? What must be true on the basis of this? Or what does the author seem to be saying, even if they don't come right out and conclude something? So yeah, you're still reading critically, but when you see that there is not a conclusion, so it's not an argument, then yeah, you're not calling it a bad argument.
Okay, because I noticed the second and third questions that we did, Nathan kind of was creating his own objections, or kind of just like being like, oh, what if I don't want to do this, or I should do this, what if I don't want to do that? So that's kind of why I was asking.
Yeah. So you always kind of read critically, because you don't know until there are, sometimes the conclusion will jump out at you, and you might read a first sentence that sounds like a conclusion. Why might it sound like a conclusion? Well, besides you're probably not going to get a word like therefore or a conclusion indicator, so to speak. But the first sentence might be something that sounds like a bold claim, like Hawaiian pizza is the best pizza. Like, does that sound like some evidence that you're supposed to just accept as true? Or does that sound like something that I'm going to have to prove?
Something you're going to have to prove.
Right. So sometimes you can see what the conclusion is, like, as you're reading it. Other times, and most of the time, we should just, we kind of need to complete reading the entire passage before we're sure on what the main conclusion is. So until that point, and we know really what the full scope of the argument is, you have to read everything somewhat critically. And even premises, pieces of evidence that you might think, okay, well, maybe I just have to accept that. You're still like sort of looking to poke holes in things. It's just that sometimes some of those statements that you object to later on, when you realize it's just a premise, you say, okay, well, I had a problem with it, but for the sake of arguments, I'll put my problems aside because it's not the really big problem here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. No, great question. All right, Katie, you of the clapping hands, what's up?
My bad. That was on me. Okay, this is more about like the classes on here. So I have the first free basic, whichever like the go-to level is on the Dean's. I was gonna upgrade as I get closer to like taking the test, but I was wondering how many of the like free classes like this are available like every once in a while. Like, how often is one available that I could join?
Good question. Haley, are you here? Do you know the answer to that? How often are we doing these free classes?
We do one a month.
One a month.
Okay,
cool.
Great.
Sometimes we add in we sprinkle in like a proctor test, and sometimes there will be two, but usually just one.
Okay, thanks. That's all.
Cool. In Kyung, what's up?
Hi. I posted on the chat. So I sometimes come up with the same prediction or objection as like Ben or Nathan, but I go a different way when I pick the answer. So I don't know how is it going wrong.
You go a different way, meaning, do you not see your prediction, or do you see it, but then you get tempted by a different answer choice, so you pick that one instead?
Yeah, the combination is like I can't, because they always like rephrase it. So I guess it's kind of, they make it really difficult, and then so it doesn't sound like my prediction. So when I look at the explanation, it's like that's what I thought, but so I don't know how to overcome that.
So it's a matter of reading comprehension within the answer choices, it sounds like. Yeah.
Oh no, the LR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But well, it's a problem of reading comprehension, right?
Yeah.
Which means we have to treat every section of this test not just the reading comprehension passage, but also every LR argument, also every question, also every answer choice as a test of reading comprehension. So that means the same things. If you're reading the passage slowly and carefully, one word at a time if you need to, then sometimes you have to do the same thing with the answer choices. So if you see an answer choice that matches your prediction, or which seems to match your prediction, that's great. You should already be feeling pretty good about it. If it's then up to you to figure out, like, does this actually, maybe not word for word, but is the meaning actually the same? And you're very rarely going to predict exactly word for word. I mean, especially on like, we always try to predict the main point question on reading comprehension, like that first question most of the time. But I don't think once in my LSAT career, I don't think I've ever predicted the exact words. But if the meaning is the same, then it's still your prediction, right? The other thing I would add to that, so I think recognizing that it's just another extension of reading comprehension, and you need to slow down and like rephrase the answer choice if you need to translate it for yourself. The other thing to recognize is that you made two mistakes. You didn't pick the right answer, but you also picked the wrong answer. So when you're reviewing, you also need to ask yourself, well, why did I pick the wrong answer instead? Why did I miss the fact that it was wrong? And it was maybe because you were trying to make a case for it. Like you were trying to say, well, I didn't like this other one because it didn't match my exact thought that I had in my head. So then you try to start like arguing in favor of some other answer choice. You should have the opposite mindset, which is not argue for the answer choices. You want to argue against the answer choices, because most of the time they're wrong.
Thank you. Oh, one more thing, real quick. So I'm currently on basic plan. So like when I do the drill and then I pick my answer, so you need to take like as much as time you need to make sure that you're 100% sure. But like I'm kind of relying on the answer. I mean the explanation, like, oh, let me see what the demon says. Like I don't like take enough time to think, and I just want to see what they're saying. So that's kind of becoming a problem also.
Well, it's a problem.
Yeah.
we have to get uncomfortable. It's like, it would be like if you went to the gym and you're trying to lift heavier weights, but it's really hard for you to lift a particular weight. So you decide, well, instead, why don't I go watch a video of someone lifting that weight just so I can see what it looks like? You're never going to get stronger that way. You have to do it yourself. And that means you have to get uncomfortable sometimes, and you have to struggle sometimes. And you can just be okay with it, because who cares? It's just practice. Like, it's not the real thing. It's just your time to improve and get better. But it has to be, you have to like embrace that difficult moment and be okay with it and say, this is really hard for me right now. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep working because I know that I can get there. I might just be I might just be 30 seconds away.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Because ultimately that's what you got to do on the tests too.
Right. Thank you.
Good questions, In Kim. Thank you. Any other questions for me or Haley? I think Haley's here. Haley is as she mentioned earlier, now a 2L in law school. Haley, how are you finding 2L compared to 1L? Is it way easier?
Haha, that's a funny joke. Well, you guys will learn, they say the first year they scare you to death, second year they work you to death, and third year they bore you to death. And I for sure feel worked to death. But like overall the content's easier because you know what you're doing now, right? You've taken finals, you've been through the process, you've had the stress about the GPA and the rankings. So the second time around, there's a lot less stress. And I'm even a mentor for my 1Ls. I have like a group of 6 little children that I get to mentor, which is really fun.
That's awesome. Are you doing any extracurriculars?
Yeah, I am a research assistant for a professor and for a victims' rights professor. And then I am working at I live in Utah. I'm working at the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office. And then I'm a part of some of the clubs like the Women's Law Caucus and the Public Interest Law Organization. And I do some pro bono hours too. So you are never going to be bored for the next 3 years. But everything you guys are working towards is all going to be worth it. Honestly, when you're on the other side, it doesn't feel like it was so hard, which that sounds crazy, but it's also worth it.
That's awesome.
If you guys have any questions, I'm your girl.
Yeah, Selena had a question, hand up for a second. Did that answer your question? Okay, maybe not. Priscilla, could you give your take on blind review? Well, we should define what we mean by blind review. I think blind review just means if you get a question wrong, try to, before just looking at the answer, before looking at the explanation, but also before even looking at what the right answer is, do it again. Try to get it right. It'll be easier now because you've ruled out one answer choice. But by default in the daemon, if you get something wrong, oh yeah, thanks, Haley. Shared that link on how to blind review. If you get something wrong, the daemon will present you with a blind review page, which doesn't tell you the answer and says, try it again, get it right this time, and actually do it. Actually embrace that opportunity to get that right, because you struggling with it and getting it right. And I don't mean like, well, I had it narrowed it down to 2 and I picked one of them and it wasn't that, so I'll pick the other one and just quickly hit submit. I'm talking about, no, you didn't know 100% what the answer was. Here's your chance to fix that. And even if you had it narrowed down to 2 before, simply selecting the other one that you were considering without being able to tell me why that's definitely the right answer, that's not good enough. That's missing the opportunity to actually do that hard work of figuring it out, of lifting that weight on your own, right? So do it again and do everything you can to get it right and know why the answer you're picking is right. Then, hit submit, and hopefully you will have gotten it right and you won't even really, ideally, after you're done with your blind review, like if you've done it really correctly, then the explanation shouldn't be all that informative to you because you will have figured it out on your own. Like after blind review, if you've actually taken the time to solve it, then the explanation shouldn't really tell you anything much that's new. Obviously, that's not always what happens. We struggle with questions. We get them wrong even on a second attempt. That's why the explanations are there. But that second chance to actually do the question is really helpful. Cool. Any other questions for me? Or for Haley? She's got more to talk about because she's living through the thing that y'all want to experience.
Oh goodness. You can also email us at help@lsatdemon.com. I run the help email, or call us, text us. You'll get me or Jen and we can answer all your questions. And if we can't answer it, we'll find someone who can. So just send us whatever you have.
Yeah,
another question, In-kyun?
just real quick. How hard is LSAT compared to law school 1 to 100?
Well, now I feel like it's easy, but if you'd asked me that in the moment of studying for the LSAT, I would not have said that. So, but honestly, all the skills that you're learning in the LSAT do translate to law school. I mean, you're going to use your reading comp, you're going to use LR. You even see words that you see in the LSAT in your casebook. So it's really helpful. I would say law school is not harder. It's just more time consuming. You're going to put in a lot more work, but it's probably about the same level of like reading those, like pick the worst reading comp passage. Like if you hate science passages, like picture reading that every single day, and that's as hard as it gets. So it's not necessarily hard. It's just like more. So you get stressed out because you have so much to do. but the actual like level of difficulty is not going to be harder than your undergrad and studying for the LSAT. At least in my experience, that may not be for everybody.
It's just a lot of volume.
A lot of volume. Yeah, I had for one of my classes this week, I had Hyva's class Wednesday and then Thursday. And between Wednesday and Thursday, he wanted us to read 90 pages on top of your other classes. So it's just, you can read it. The difficulty is not different. It's just how much you're reading and taking and then keeping it inside on top of everything else. So it's just a different kind of skill. And you get that skill working on the LSAT. Like keeping that information in your head and then applying it, you know, after you finished a whole passage, that's going to directly translate when you're in law school.
Thank you. Do you still have words that you don't know when you read?
I was Googling, what was I Googling? Something in class today when I was in evidence, and I was like, I'm not, it was like propensity. That's what I Googled. I was like, what the hell is propensity? That sounds so silly, but yeah, there's still words I don't know. There was even a word on my final I didn't know, and I'm like, well, this could change my answer, but don't know what that means, so.
I still run into vocabulary that I don't know on the LSAT sometimes. Not too often, but it does happen.
What do lawyers do when they don't know a word in a case, like at the court?
Hopefully you're prepared enough before court that you Googled it. Honestly, aren't as like strict as I feel like they're portrayed in the movies and stuff. If you ask your judge, like, can you expand further on that? They'll probably reword it a different way for you to understand it, and it's not like an embarrassing thing. There's like this huge movement in the last 10 years to make access to the legal world more accessible to those who aren't in our position. And in that way, you'll see, like, if you read cases from pre-2000s, they're really hard to read because they wanted to talk all fancy. And then after the 2000s, they're talking pretty normal, like how we talk every day. So you're going to run into that less and less, especially in everyday practice. In law school, you may run into it when you're reading the 1800s cases, but you're not going to run into it really in everyday practice.
Yeah, that's great, Julia. Write down words you don't know and Google them later. For sure. Look them up. They're all on the internet. All those words, they're in the internet. You can find out about them.
All right, I have to head out for the night, but again,
yeah, probably.
If you have any other law school questions or anything else, just shoot me a message. And if you send it to the help email, just say this is for Haley and I'll answer it for you.
Yeah, and if any of you want to hit me up directly, I'm Eric. That's ERIK at lsatdemon.com. You got my email. I also read the podcast emails when they come in. So
this is your podcast, man.
There you go. If your podcast email doesn't end up on the show or with a direct response from myself, I apologize. It's just because we get a lot of them. I do try to respond in some way if they don't end up on the agenda, but it doesn't always happen. All right. See everyone. Have an excellent evening. Thank you so much for being part of this class. Keep an eye out on the schedule for an upcoming free one. I'm sure we'll have another one next month. Until then, maybe I'll see you in one of my live classes. Bye, all. See you, Haley.